In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Let's talk college football. It's time for the Sports Page Summer of College Football, presented by Buddy Gregg RVs and Motorhomes, our daily preview of teams and conferences around the country for the upcoming college football season. Find Buddy Gregg RVs and Motorhomes on their Facebook page, their website at buddygregg.com, and follow them on Twitter at Buddy Gregg RVs. Now let's take a full conference look at the Mountain West.
To help us with that, we go to beautiful Fort Collins, Colorado. Kelly Lyell covers not only the Colorado State Rams, but also the Mountain West Conference for the Coloradoan in Fort Collins. You can find his work on Twitter. It's at Kelly Lyell. That's KELLYLYELL. Kelly, Vince, and Evan here in, actually we're in Knoxville, but we're in beautiful Sevierville near the Smoky Mountains as well. We have a battle of the mountains going on here. How you doing, Kelly?
Good. How you guys doing?
We are good. Smokies versus Rockies today. So I think you still get the slight advantage. I'll give it to you. Have you ever been this part of the country?
You know, I really haven't. I've been to Kentucky a couple times and the D.C. area and changed planes in Atlanta and been to Florida, but that's about as close as I've been. So.
Well, new look to the league this year. Now with the teams as they are this year with the departures and additions, is the Mountain West Conference in better shape now than it has been in recent years?
You know, I think it's very good, and I think talking to coaches at the Mountain West Media Days last week in Las Vegas, some of the coaches that have been around the league for quite a while, I think Rocky Long, San Diego State's coach, has been in the league since before there was a league, since he was at New Mexico for a long time too. And I kind of tend to agree with him that I think it's got the potential to be as strong or stronger than it was when it had Utah, TCU, BYU. There are some really good teams in this conference with what they brought in this year from the WAC, because they're bringing in some, a San Jose State team that's coming off an 11-win season, top 21 ranking in the final national poll is what they were, and even though they have a new coach, they've got a 4,000-plus yard passer back, a quarterback, and they're only picked to finish third in their division, in the West Division. Fresno State, San Diego State are both, at least in the preseason media poll, picked to finish ahead of them. I think all three of those teams are pretty powerful, and really that whole division looks pretty good, because right behind them is Nevada, who, again, also has a new coach, but has Cody Fajardo, the quarterback back that was kind of doing Colin Kaepernick-like things at quarterback last year for them.
I'm wondering, Kelly, is Boise State, do you think, still the class of the league, or are there some teams this year that could rise up and make it hard for them to run the table in the conference?
I think Boise State's still the class of the league. In the Mountain Division, I think it's going to be hard for anybody to touch them the way these divisions worked out. Utah State's got some talent. They've got Chucky Keaton back, a quarterback who folks might remember gave Auburn a little bit of a scare in a season opener back a few years back when he was a freshman. But Boise State's probably got a pretty clear path to the Mountain Division title. But then again, there will be a conference championship this year, and they're going to have to go up against a Fresno State or San Jose or San Diego State, and that could be a tough game. So it'll be interesting. And Boise's got a fairly decent schedule this year, and as they usually do, they challenge themselves. They're opening up at Washington. I guess it's not quite as difficult as it has been. They have Southern Miss on there, actually playing Tennessee Martin for their non-D1 game, it looks like, or their non-FBS game on September 7th in Boise. But so their schedule's maybe a little bit lighter than it's been. I know Nevada's got a really aggressive non-conference schedule. A couple of these teams are really pushing themselves in the non-conference, and others are not. So it'll be interesting to see whether that helps them or hurts them. The teams that are really, really out there. Some years in the Mountain West, that's not a good thing. There's a lot of injuries, but yet that's also how the Utahs, TCUs got into BCS games. Boise, once upon a time, got into those BCS games was by playing, really good schedules and going out and beating some of the best teams in the country.
Visiting with Kelly Lyell from the Coloradoan, covers Colorado State and also the Mountain West Conference, joining us here for our Sports Page Summer of College Football preview of the MWC. You mentioned a couple of the quarterbacks. I don't know that people realize how many elite quarterbacks are in this league. Talk about Derek Carr and some of those other top quarterbacks, and maybe how good you think Carr is nationally among quarterbacks?
I think that Derek Carr is right up there among the best quarterbacks in the country, and running that spread, fast-paced, no-huddle spread offense that Tim DeRuyter brought with him from Texas A&M. Last year was their first year running that. DeRuyter was a first-year coach who just replaced Pat Hill, and yet Carr goes out and throws for 4,100 yards, and I forget his touchdown numbers, in the 30s certainly. Put up huge numbers, and he was still learning the offense all season long. It's kind of scary. I know, he was just, he can't wait for the season to get started. I talked to him last week out at the media days, and he, asked him, I said, what more can you do? And he goes, that's what I'm anxious to find out, He could be really, really good. And he's got his top 3 receivers back, which doesn't hurt him. And they just get off so many plays. They run it quick. He said they're expecting to get off about 10 to 15 more plays a game this year than they did last year, just because everybody's a little more comfortable with it. That no huddle, the whole getting up to the line and getting the snap off and moving. And he's been given, because of his ability and what he's proven, he's been given a lot of flexibility to make audibles and make some changes at the line of scrimmage that he thinks is really going to allow them to do a little bit more too. He's going to be able to change out of things easier than he did last year, just because he's more comfortable with the offense and the coaching staff is more comfortable with him and his decision making. So I would be surprised if he's not a quarterback that at least is in the mention as a potential Heisman guy at some point during the year.
Kelly, we're going to be talking to Tim DeRuyter from Fresno State in a few minutes on the show. I was wondering what his reputation is in the conference, and is he a guy that could emerge as a hot name in the year or years to come? And also at Colorado State, Jim McElwain, who's someone who's familiar in SEC country. Could this be a type of year for Colorado State to kind of vault him back onto the national radar screen as far as jobs elsewhere are concerned?
I don't think it will, as far as for Jim McElwain at Colorado State. For Tim DeRuyter at Fresno State, I think it definitely will. I think he's, I don't know what his contract situation is there as far as what kind of penalties there'd be for leaving and all, but I'd be surprised if some schools aren't going to take a serious look at him, because I just cannot see that team not being at least a 9-10 win kind of team this year. And probably playing in that Mountain West championship game against Boise State, which, if I had to call it, I'd say, that could be a toss-up, or I might even go with Fresno based on what each team has coming back. Boise doesn't have nearly as much talent coming back this year as they have in some others. At the same time, they've built a pretty good depth. And then Jim McElwain at Colorado State, I don't think anything's going to happen too quickly. For one thing, his athletic director here, Jack Graham, has put a pretty hefty buyout into his contract. I think it'd be $2.5 million is what somebody'd have to pay him if he were to leave after this year. It's kind of a descending thing over the 5-year period, but nobody's ever going to get him away for less than like $1.5 million during the term of this 5-year contract, because that's specifically what he promised he would not do when he was hired, and what they made him commit to that he would not do is just come try to build up his reputation for a year or two and jump at the next job. He claimed he's committed to this long term, and Jack Graham, the athletic director, said he wanted a coach that was committed long term and structured the contract that way.
Kelly, either Fresno State or Boise State, are they undefeated good potentially to sort of be that BCS buster that people look for all the time?
They both have that potential. Certainly, I'm sitting here right now looking at Fresno State's schedule, and, they do have Boise early, even though they're in different divisions. Those guys play each other in week 4 in their conference opener on September 20th at Fresno. So one of them is going to have a loss pretty early on in the season because they're playing each other. But other than that, both of them have the kind of schedules where you could see them really kind of running the table to meet again down the road. I don't think either of them, Boise opens at Washington, which will be a tough game. But then their schedule's not that bad. Other than that, their other out-of-conference games are UT Martin, Southern Miss, and somebody else in here that I'm obviously missing. But nothing. Oh, BYU. They're at BYU, which could be a tough game for them in late October. But both these teams have the potential to come in with some really good records, and maybe get into that conference championship game. And I know folks in the Mountain West would love to have one of them get into that game, go undefeated, and get a shot at the college football playoff. I don't know how realistic that is, given that it's only a 4-team deal. I guess that doesn't start till next year anyway. But get into a BCS bowl game this year, and they have that potential. I don't know that either of them will really be quite that strong in the national. I don't know that either of the schedules are quite strong enough to allow that to happen, but it could. The conference overall is so much stronger that I would think the computer rankings and all are going to give them a little more credit for their conference games this year than maybe they've had in recent years, especially for the teams that have come out of the WAC, because that conference really was only 3-4 teams strong for the most part. And now they're in a conference where really you've got about eight really solid teams out of the 12, and the others are all kind of capable of pulling off an upset here or there, and all seem to be moving up in the world. Even the New Mexicos and Hawaiis and UNLVs who were picked to finish at the bottom, Colorado State, all look like they're going to be significantly better this year than they were a year ago, and they're all kind of in that second, third year under new coaches that are kind of getting things going in the right direction. So it'll be a really interesting season. I'm really looking forward to it.
Kelly, how surprised are you, honestly, that Bobby Houck is back as UNLV's coach?
I'm very surprised. Bobby's incredibly well respected in the coaching profession. Other coaches always speak very, very highly of him. He is doing things in the same manner that, all these other coaches are. He didn't want to go the JC route, which had traditionally been how UNLV turned things around. He went with high school guys. But it is a bit surprising. I think even he's a little surprised he's still around. And I unfortunately for him, I think his team will be better this year, but I don't see them moving up in the standings. I don't see them moving past a Nevada or a San Jose State, San Diego State, Fresno State. They're going to be battling Hawaii for last place in their division in Norm Chow's second year at Hawaii, and that's who knows which of them is going to come out on top. But if you're finishing fifth in your division in a 6-team division, given what he's done in the past, you're probably not going to be around next year.